Good morning, everyone. My name is Bonnie Mall, and I am the Education and Training Coordinator for the Virginia Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. And really happy that you guys are able to join us today. Again, today is the first day of the National Volunteer Week in the United States this week. And what better way to start off this National Volunteer Week than learn about Earth Team. Really happy that we were able to partner with NRCS and for you all to learn more about Earth Team and how they are a really good program to really strengthen your district program and to collaborate with NRCS. Today's format will be NRCS. Barbara Bowen from NRCS will kick us off and talk about the Earth Team program and introduce the different area coordinators who you will work with. And then we will take a break for questions about that presentation, after which you're going to hear from Rachel Winter from the Headwaters Stormwater District to talk about how she's going to talk about how she uses Earth Team volunteers. And then Kathleen Sullivan from the Virginia Dare Stormwater Conservation District will talk about how she utilizes Earth Team volunteer programs. And then we'll have question time after that. As we are doing the presentation, if you do have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat box. I'll keep note of that. And then during the time we do have the question and answer period, I'll call on you guys to ask your questions. If you, for any reasons, have technical difficulty, please put a message in the chat box and I will troubleshoot that. But again, welcome. Thank you for being here. This presentation is being recorded and will be sent out later today as a resource for you all. And on that note, I'd like to introduce Barbara Bowen, who works with the Natural Resource Conservation Service at the state office. And over to you, Barbara.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for a discussion of all things Earth Team. As Bonnie indicated, my name is Barbara Bowen, and I'm the State Volunteer Coordinator for Virginia NRCS. I'm going to kick off today's discussion and then pass the baton on to some members of the team that you really will want to get to know better if you haven't been working with them already. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Kendall and Bonnie for letting us come to you today to talk a little bit more about the program, tell you how it works and how it can work for you. For those who aren't familiar with the Earth Team, it was actually established in 1985 to allow NRCS to stretch available resources and help put additional conservation practices on the ground. It's often described as our volunteer workforce, but I want to emphasize today that it's really a conservation partnership program. Volunteers can work alongside NRCS and district staff to provide a wide range of services and conservation technical assistance. They can also do some teaching and conservation education to generate awareness through, and also some community projects as well. Volunteers really are those extra hands to help you get a little more done each day and tackle jobs that have been piling up on the to-do list. They can also free you up to spend more time in the field connecting with producers, and that's a big selling point for our own staff. Inviting volunteers to be a part of your office really extends your area of influence too, because it's a great way to just show your commitment to the community and build some of those connections with the public. The best volunteer really is one who can fill a hole or a need in your office. And if they're going to do that, then you're probably more inclined to commit some time to training them and working with them. Today's volunteer can also become tomorrow's employee. Many of our conservationists started with the Earth Team, and a number of current and former district staff can make that same claim. Just wanted to highlight one of our unique success stories right now, and that's Keith Thomas. He's a two-time Earth Team Award winner who was first recognized in 2016 as our outstanding individual volunteer. He translated his Earth Team experience into a full-time job with the Shenandoah Valley District, and though he later took a position with the city of Harrisonburg, Keith really didn't stop volunteering, and his commitment to service garnered him our 2020 award for his work with the VA Graze tool. So now we've answered the why question. Let's talk a little bit about the who. This slide outlines some basic eligibility criteria for the EARTH team. It's not tremendously complicated. They have to meet an age requirement and a citizenship requirement. And they also have the option of working individually or as part of a group on a specific project. Volunteers can really give some dedicated attention to a specific issue or initiative like conservation education. I think you've probably all seen some of the work that volunteer groups do with environmental education and outdoor classrooms. So that's always a good use of volunteers. It's important to also remember that these people are volunteering because they really believe in the work. They support our mission, and they can contribute their skills to complement or support your paid staff. In this COVID operational environment, outdoor assignments like this can really be a perfect fit. When we're not able to have a whole lot of people in the office, you can put them outside doing water testing and monitoring or doing plantings, and that's really a good way to keep the program going and keep your volunteers engaged. Volunteers can also take a good idea and run with it. And I wanted to show a couple of examples of just what I mean with these two photos. The left photo is some Emory and Henry College students who set up a trash in, cash out event to support environmental education in their community. And they offered park visitors a day of service and fun as they picked up litter and then hunted for the treasure, which is the geocaches that were strategically placed within the park. On the right-hand photo, another former award winner, Mary Sancombe, is on the job with the Henrico area water quality samplers. And she actually was not doing this alone. She made it a whole family affair with her son, Max, and her husband. And they would go out and monitor in the James and Chickahominy rivers and the tributaries. So it can be something that involves the whole family, really. Volunteers can also offer a fresh approach to challenges that you're facing. You can use them to help with marketing and outreach, and really just extend your own message into a wider audience in your service area. Wanted to highlight a little bit about our structure within Virginia and who is in place to support you. You really do have a very strong team. As I indicated, I'm the state volunteer coordinator. We also have Bonnie Mall as our association liaison, who comes up with a whole lot of great ideas about mutually beneficial projects that we can engage in with the district partners. We also have a field liaison, and right now that is Peggy Shaw McBee in our Warrenton office. Then we have 4 area coordinators who are really the on-the-ground staff to make it happen. They sustain the program by providing some direct support to the service centers and to the volunteers. And what I'd like to do right now is let them take it from here to introduce themselves and share some details about effectively using volunteers in your office. So I'm going to start off with Area 1 and Donna Heidel.
Hello, my name is Donna Heidel, and I'm the area coordinator for Area 1, which is located in the Harrisonburg Service Center. Just a few examples of the ways we have used volunteers in the past. Anything clerical, filing, shredding, data entry, things like that. Tree planting is another big one. and also stream monitoring and cleanup. We get a lot of hours contributed from those activities. And I service all the districts that you see on your screen there. So just feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to assist you any way I can, and I look forward to working with you.
Okay, thanks, Donna. Next, we have Brittany Owens from our area 2.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Owens. I'm newer to NRCS. I joined the team in June of last year. So I'm still learning some of the ins and outs, but definitely have some ideas on where people can be used. Don't hesitate to reach out to me and ask any questions, though.
Okay. Next, we have Anika Collins from our area 3.
Good Monday morning, everyone. My name is Anika Collins. I'm assigned to the Farmville area office under the direct supervision of Mr. Kilby Majet. We service area 3 that's listed there on your screen. I'm coming to you also new to the NRCS team, coming from Department of Defense. I've been on board about 7 months. If you fall within my coverage area, I look forward to meeting you sometime in the near future. Although this is a very unique time and we're trying to remain optimistic and encourage the use of volunteers while still remaining safe in the field and the workplace. I sent out an introduction letter, which I pray it fell into your hands. If not, my contact information is listed there under my photo. Please contact me and I'm sure we can put our heads together to find a good way and a safe way to use our volunteers. Thanks. And again, I look forward to meeting you in the near future.
Great. Now we're going to wrap up, last but not least, with our Area 4 coordinator.
Hi, I'm Wendy Mears. I work in the Smithfield area office, and I am your Earth Team volunteer, and I will answer any questions that you have. Just give me a call. I cover the SWCDs that are listed on the screen. There are several different ways that you can use volunteers other than what Donna has listed. One of the things, especially during these times, is possibly if you have a project that you are trying to get information about and you need to do research for that project, you could get a college student or a high school student to do some research online for you and put together a report of the items that they found to help you out. There's several different ways that they can work with you in a teleworking mode, so to speak. If you have posters or something that you want to put together, they could do that in their own home for you and send it to you by email. But there's many ways that we can get them to work for you this time. If you want to reach out to me and give me a call, I'll be happy to answer any questions for you.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Brittany Owens, who's going to get a little bit more into the details of how the Earth Team works and how you can start moving forward with it.
Hi, everybody. Again, it's Brittany Owens. So before you can sign up volunteers, it can be helpful to perform a needs assessment. This can be as simple as making a list of the activities that you need to be done. Figure out what must be accomplished, what's not getting done, and what you'd like to accomplish and what volunteers can do for you. You may need help with upcoming projects or events, educational activities, or trainings. Once you work your way through this process, you have a list of tasks that you need to be done, and we'll be able to better find a volunteer with the right skill sets. Volunteers who already possess the skills you need will require less training and less work on your part to bring them up to speed. It might be helpful to also make a chart with 4 columns and write down your needs. If you're preparing for an event, just list the activities involved and assess the number of volunteers needed, whether you need a specific skill set for any of them, or if anybody can kind of fill those shoes. After completing the assessment, you might realize that an Earth Team volunteer can do anything you're authorized to do. Volunteers need to understand the job and how it fits into the big picture. Get other staff involved in identifying meaningful duties for them to perform. Board volunteers are hard to retain. Now you're ready to recruit your volunteers. Do you need one volunteer? Do you need a group? Do you need people to come back on a regular basis? One of the most effective ways to recruit a volunteer is to just ask someone. You'd be surprised at how many people might say, sure, I can help with that. So where else can you find volunteers? You can find them in your community, your family, landowners and their families, church groups, senior citizen groups, youth organizations, but they have to be 14 years or older to volunteer, high schools and colleges, or retirees. Youth organizations are always working on service projects. Scouting groups, 4-H, and junior master gardeners are all good options. Not only do these activities help the community, but they also fulfill requirements for training and certifications. High school and college students are also required to perform a certain number of volunteer hours to graduate. Retirees might feel they would like to contribute to their community by volunteering and lending a lifetime of expertise to these younger people. It's great to involve your district board members, but you do need to keep a few things in mind when counting hours. The bottom line is that the activities for the board members cannot be counted as volunteers' hours if they're performing the duties that they were elected to do. Okay. Now that you have your volunteers, what's next? We have several forms that we do need completed, and usually it's a one-time thing. So for an individual, we'll need the Earth Team Volunteer Application, which is an OF301A. We're required to enter this information into our tracking program, and if they are ages 14 to 17, they need parental consent, and the parent will have to sign this form. For groups, we'll use an OF301B, and the leader will start with the top of that information. And then it's going to list all the members with their contact information. The second page of this OF301B is just a continuation of where the volunteers would sign in and put their signature and contact info. Each group member should sign the signature block beside his or her name. This allows us to track each member's hours in the tracking program. This step is especially necessary if there is groups that work throughout the year on a specific project, such as stream monitoring or annual field day events, where a volunteer might work different dates and times than others. On this page, we've got 3 forms. This first one that comes up is a form that you can use to record your volunteers' hours, and you can send it directly to us. You would just fill in the dates and times and select the associated activity codes from the list at the bottom of the form. If you prefer to record your volunteers' hours in your own spreadsheet or a different format, we just ask that you include the same information from this form. You can email the timesheets to your area coordinator on a monthly basis or quarterly basis. Most will send out reminders. You can also work with your NRCS district conservationist to submit your timesheets. Now, the next item on this page is a photo or video release. It's a good idea to have your volunteer complete this form so that you can use them to promote your district activities and the Earth Team program. This release gives permission for us to post photos or videos of the volunteer on our Earth Team webpage to highlight their service. Again, if they are underage, so 14 to 17, the release has to be signed by their parent or guardian. This last form is only needed if the volunteer will also work with us at NRCS and drive one of our federal government vehicles for official NRCS work. The volunteer's driving record is also required and may be grounds for denial of this privilege. Once you have all these forms completed, we ask that you scan them and send them to your area volunteer coordinator so that the volunteers can be added to our tracking database. But we also ask that you create a file for your office and keep the originals there so that you can stay connected, so that if we have any questions, we can always reach out and get that, and to keep them interested and informed. We like to recognize our volunteers, especially during National Volunteer Week. We will send out when our nominations are due to volunteer for or nominate them for an Earth Team Award. This will also get you more recognition for the great work you're doing in your district. The call for nominations normally goes out through the All District listserv in July or August. The team meets in late September, early October to review the submissions and select state award winners. State winners are then submitted for regional and then national awards for consideration. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Barbara.
Well, I'd just like to wrap up with one final thought, and that is that the biggest benefit of this program and this collaboration is just strengthening the existing and ongoing partnership between conservation districts and NRCS to achieve our mutual goals, which is, of course, the stewardship and protection of our natural resources here in Virginia. So I think now we're going to open the floor for questions, and hopefully Bonnie's got some great feedback in the chat that our coordinators can provide some more information as needed.
Thank you, Barbara and Brittany, Donna, Anika, and Wendy for that really informative presentation. There's no questions right now in the chat box, but does anyone, if you want to raise your hand or come off mute to ask a question? While people are thinking, I have a question. Brittany and other area coordinators, there was a slide about directors and how to count their hours. Can you kind of, Wendy, do you mind just giving an example of what the difference would be, like if a director did XYZ versus QRS?
Sure. Okay, so directors were elected to do the business of the district, financial meetings, approving plans to be paid out. But if they are working for you to do a farm day on their farm, and they are preparing their farm for this farm day or a field event at their farm, any hours that they work to prepare their farm for visitors to come to can be counted as volunteer hours. If they are lending their farm or their business to do a tire recycling day, any time that they spend preparing that area to collect the tires, or if they even get out to help you load the tires up in the truck, they can count those hours as volunteer hours. Those are just a couple of the biggies that directors can count hours for.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. I think just to kind of like give examples, I appreciate you just clarifying that a little bit. Jessica had a question. She wanted to know what the Earth Team website, and I just put in the chat box with the link to the Virginia Earth Team website on the NRCS page. Another question just for the area coordinators. What happens is if I'm not co-located with my NRCS office? Can you give me some advice on how to make sure I am working with my area coordinator?
This is Donna. You can feel free to reach out to me for anything Area 1, and that I'm sure that goes for the other coordinators as well. I have several offices that have closed over the years, and I still get hours through the district conservationist, or I reach out directly to SWCD personnel to obtain those hours.
Thank you, Donna. And this presentation that was just shown will be emailed to all of you all so that you can have it as a reference. And just to kind of reiterate what Barbara said, this is really about a collaboration between NRCS and stormwater conservation districts to really strengthen the relationship, to really work to the goals that we have with this regarding natural resources. So with no other questions, just want to thank you again, Barbara. Thank you, Donna, Brittany, Anika, and Wendy for introducing yourselves and for kind of going more in depth what the Earth Team program is all about. Now I'd like to turn it over to Rachel Winter, who is the education specialist at Headwaters Soil and Water Conservation District, to talk about the perspective from a district's point of view and how the Headwaters District uses Earth Team volunteers. So Rachel, take it away.
Bonnie, we are located in the Area 1 district for NRCS. So Donna Heidel is our area coordinator that I reach out to. Great working relationship with Donna. And as Bonnie said, I'm going to give you some examples of how our district is using Earth Team volunteers, and also kind of explain how we've also adapted a little bit to the pandemic and using some volunteers, not right now, but how we, in the beginning of the pandemic, we had to continue to keep gears turning and assisting our current volunteers that were working with us. My slide can switch. There we go. So who are our Earth Team volunteers? We have college interns, and through our internship program, we also sign up our college interns as Earth Team volunteers. They are assisting with technical assistance, both on the district side and also on the NRCS side. They help us with educational outreach events. They sometimes do special projects. And we work towards their interests to really gear their experience with the district, both towards the district's mission and what we need accomplished that an intern can do, and also the goals and personal interests that intern has. The bulk of our Earth Team volunteers, though, really are helping with our educational efforts. We see lots of retired teachers, members and groups of local nonprofit environmental groups that assist us. And also, as was mentioned in the NRCS presentation, our associate directors we also have as Earth Team volunteers when they're assisting with educational events, or if they are serving on committee meetings and assisting district work that they have been asked by district directors to help with that they're not elected to do. During the pandemic, we had a current intern who then unfortunately had to, because of safety reasons, return back home, and he was not a local student. He lived in Richmond and was attending school here in the Valley. With that, we actually shifted gears and offered him some virtual assignments that he could complete. For example, he was interested in the VCAP program, the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program. So he used that to help the district create a brochure by using pictures and stuff from his local community in Richmond. So as Wendy had mentioned, you can certainly find some activities for your volunteers to do in a telework or a virtual setting. Right now, our district does not currently have any active volunteers because mostly our education program has kind of been on hold due to the pandemic. Either I personally, as our education specialist, are doing virtual events through Zoom or another virtual platform. We haven't really had a need to have extra hands assisting with the education program, but we are planning to advertise for an internship position and open back up our volunteer program to advertise for new volunteers this summer. So fingers crossed as things keep improving, hopefully we can start to see more faces either around the office or helping with outreach events. How do we recruit our volunteers? We advertise our local internship opportunities with our local colleges. We also promote volunteer opportunities at any of the fairs and festivals we have attended over the time. Our local community groups have also been a big help in recruiting volunteers. We have great partnership with Shenandoah Green, which is a local nonprofit environmental group here in the Stanton area, which has been very helpful in providing us with some folks that really have an interest in environmental education. With the start of when we started our underground classroom program in 2019. And then lastly, we also advertise on our district website and social media. They have been a big help. Social media, especially the past few years as technology has really improved and lots of folks are using that way to connect with local groups and organizations. And just some things to note, lessons learned that we have discovered while using Earth Team volunteers is make sure you're providing taking the district time to provide training to your volunteers to really understand what their skill set is, what they enjoy doing, and then matching that with what you would need done in your office. You want to keep them engaged and work with their interests so that you can retain your volunteers and not see them for 1 or 2 events and then they kind of drop off the board and you really don't hear anything from them again, because you want to make sure you're maintaining that working relationship that you have with them and that they also see the importance of the program themselves. One thing to note, especially if you're going to be using this with an internship program, I noticed some of our younger volunteers, we really need to remind them to keep accurate timekeeping. So we at our district have a spreadsheet that we have them fill out that really asks them to provide comments and specific list what they're doing. And then I take that and translate that to the codes that Donna needs for her record keeping. Also, it's important if your district has other grants or assignments you need to report hours to, it's a great way to get it all combined into one general space. And lastly, just to note, our districts are so diverse. Any of us could get on here and name everything that we're doing. And as you start to think and brainstorm, there's usually something you can find that a volunteer can fit into your programs. Don't be afraid to take the time to brainstorm and really think what special projects have been sitting in that to-do list that could a volunteer help you with. That's kind of all I have to present. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them, or if not, we can take questions at the end and I can turn the floor to Kathleen.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. I really liked how you ended. There is something for everyone. Next, I'd like to introduce Kathleen Sullivan, who is the district manager at Virginia Dare Stormwater Conservation District, to talk about how Kathleen and the district utilizes our team volunteers. So take it away, Kathleen.
Take myself off mute will help. All right. So my name is Kathleen Sullivan. Our district is Virginia Dare Soil and Water District down here in Virginia Beach and Chesapeake. So our office is very diverse because we have urban, we also have agriculture, a large area, but we also only have 2 staff. And we have 6 directors. And of course, I'm going to ride this out forever, but Virginia Dare, we was awarded the Virginia and the National Earth Team Award. Was it last year, Wendy? I can't remember, last year or the year before. I think it was 2019. But that was probably one of my career highlights of winning that award. And it wasn't for us, but it was truly for all of our volunteers. Right. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so because our district is diverse, we use our volunteers in different areas. And these are just 3 examples of some of our volunteers in our agriculture programs. We are involved with the NRCS CIG grant. And so we have a Southeast Virginia Farmers 2020 Club, and that is made up of local producers that are doing some different volunteer practices, BMP practices on their land. It's under the CIG, but it's also volunteers. So they're out there on their farm, they're taking times to collect data and do different things. Also, we're doing the tire days. We had to do that this year. We usually have our City of Chesapeake, their sheriff workforce helps us, but due to the pandemic this year, I said, oh, I don't think we should do that this year. And so Corey Hoare, which is our, the conservation specialist, he said, no, Kathleen, we're going to get out there and do it. So they did it this year. And we use a producer's farm. And we actually had a couple of soil and water districts come and help us, but we also had local producers help us this year. And we did something a little different. We had 2 producers let us use their property to put the tractor trailers on. So they are our volunteers as well. I think this last one is just the partnership. Okay, and we also have an educational program. Our district is very unique. I think Northern Virginia is probably like our district. I have 54 elementary schools in Virginia Beach, and last count I had 43 elementary schools in Chesapeake. I am the education coordinator as well as the district manager. So there is no way that I can put education on the ground without our volunteers. And we have a couple of programs that are really, really big programs. And I'm going to start with the agriculture reading in the classroom. We work with our local conservation partners, Chesapeake Farm Bureau. We also have our district directors go out. We have community partners, and we read in the classroom. And due to the pandemic, we didn't have it last year. We did it this year virtually. A couple of schools, we utilized Zoom. But this picture, that year, we had 1,500 students we read to. And these were all mostly preschool, at-risk youth in our area. And so that is important for us too, to do outreach for some of our schools and our volunteers. We couldn't do it without them. Farm Days, that's our largest event. We do 2 days in Virginia Beach, and we see 800 students in 2 days. Then we turn around the next week and we do the same thing in Chesapeake, and we take 800 students, and we take all of those students and we're on the farm, and with our volunteers, we are providing agriculture education. And we have a multitude of volunteers that come from Virginia Beach Master Gardeners, Chesapeake, our local beekeepers. We have Studia, Farm Bureau, Chesapeake Farm Bureau, but we had 70 volunteers and over 1,540 hours during our last Farm Days. And these are just some pictures there. And so, our volunteers, like I said, we cannot do anything without our volunteers. We have our local volunteers, our federal volunteers, our community volunteers, making a huge impact. And the conservation partnership is so important. What we do at the district, we try to be available to other agencies when they need volunteers. If they call on us, Corey is probably a little better than me because I'm getting a little older after being here so long, but we actually try to volunteer with other agencies, and that's kind of how we spread the word. While we're there, we're helping them, and we're also talking about our need for volunteers. And also your agriculture impact. Corey's very good with that, being in the community, putting, having our footprint out there. And that's why they're really open to us to do our tire days and do our farm days as well. And also when you're agriculture and environmental education, we're talking about our conservation programs. We do teacher workshops. Those teacher workshops, we also utilize our Virginia Beach Master Gardeners at these teacher workshops. We're trying to recruit volunteers. I also want to make sure that everybody is aware that diversity is important. And so we want to make sure that we're having a volunteer. Sometimes you have to do outreach to different areas that aren't traditionally served to get some volunteers. One of the greatest things I use is our Sign Up Genius. You want to have some online tools or different things because we have so many volunteers. I utilize Sign Up Genius. I send that out and people can sign up for different slots. The wonderful thing about Sign Up Genius, they actually will utilize and count those hours for me and put them in a spreadsheet. So if you can do that, it'll be good to help you stay organized. And my last thing is be that agency that volunteers want to give their time to. Be kind, thank everyone, and value your volunteers. NRCS is wonderful about sending out letters and gifts and things of that sort, but also as a soil and water district, we want to make sure that we're recognizing our volunteers as well. So that's what we try to strive for with the staff and our directors. And that's it for me. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Kathleen. Kathleen, can you talk about the award that you all received in 2019 and what program that was like what the volunteers were doing? If you can expand about that a little bit more.
Sure. We won the Virginia State Earth Team Award. And that was actually a combination of all of our programs, our farm days, our tire recycling, that CIG grant, and the reading in the classroom. Our district is very small. Like I said, we have 2 staff. We man 2 offices, Virginia Beach and Chesapeake. So we don't really have room in our office for people to come in and volunteer like most districts can do. So these are for our larger events. But that is what our award was for. And then NRCS submitted that for the national. And I was blown away because you know how many soil and water districts are out there nationally. For us to win was just amazing. And I think it's a combination of our staff, our directors, but also I've been with the district over 20 years. So it has taken, when I first started, we may have had 2 volunteers, but over the years, you kind of make those connections. And so that's how we have so many volunteers. And we don't do per se a whole lot of recruiting. It's people actually come to us and ask us, how can they help with our programs? And Wendy, she's there. Wendy's a personal friend of mine as well. But Wendy was just so helpful with all of the organization. We started out with Robert Williams, then Robert left, then we had Jake, and Jake was there during this write-up for this award, so he was very helpful. Then he left, and now we have Trenton with us, Trenton Howell, and so we're still working together. But I just will say the partnership between NRCS and the districts are so important and so valuable, and we're not co-located. We used to be with them. We're actually across the street, but we're not co-located, but it's so valuable just to go to lunch with them, just kind of stick your head in and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Can you guys help us with our volunteer program? And they will. And even the area office, like I said, with Wendy, she was wonderful.
Great. Thanks, Kathleen, for expanding on that. And what an awesome recognition to be recognized as a soil and water district nationally for your Earth Team program. So well done. Huge kudos to you and all that you're doing. And thank you, Rachel, too, for sharing what all you are doing with Earth Team volunteers. There's no questions in the chat box, but if anyone does have a question for any of the NRCS staff or for Rachel or for Kathleen, please unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
While we're waiting for that, I just had a couple more comments I wanted to make. Kathleen mentioned the recognition or the thank yous and how important those are. And we started this session by talking about it being National Volunteer Week, and I just wanted to highlight our theme this year is volunteer virtually, because that is the environment we are working in, and Rachel had some great examples of just how they've been doing that in her district. We have sent out some thank you letters. Every year we send out a thank you letter from the state conservationists, just letting everyone know how much they're appreciated and what their role has been and what we've accomplished in the past year. And we also send thank you notes. All the area volunteer coordinators send out thank you notes with some recognition items. And we try each year to come up with something that we think the volunteers will appreciate and find useful. And hopefully they will like their gifts this year. But I don't know if any of the other AVCs want to talk a little bit about some of the things that they've done for National Volunteer Week and ways that they've seen that worked really well to keep volunteers engaged and feeling appreciated. Okay, well,
I'll just say, this is Wendy. I'll just say that what I've done is I like to take all of my volunteers that I've had hours for since last April for Volunteer Week and send them all a personal letter, and along with the thank you gift that we get for them. And I have actually received phone calls from some of the volunteers that I don't really work with personally, that work with other districts, and they've called me and said, thank you so much for that recognition item. We really appreciated that. It was a nice surprise to get in the mail. So that's one of the things that I do every year at Volunteer Week. I think you can't thank your volunteers enough. And I think making it personal and handwriting a note is the best way to go. Even if you have a card that's got a pre-written note in it, I think you need to add your own sentiments in there to them to thank them. It goes a long ways when you personally sit down and write a letter. I think that's something that's gone by the wayside these days, but just writing a simple thank you note goes a long ways.
Absolutely, and we have done events in the service center when possible. Getting them some ice cream or whatever is not really doable this year, but any little expression of appreciation, I think, would go a long way with helping retain volunteers.
And I'd agree with that. I have only really worked as a volunteer at a fire and rescue department, but every little thing for appreciation helps. So even if it is just donuts when they're volunteering that day or drinks or something like that, those little things really mean a lot and makes them happy, makes them want to come back.
And one other thing I might also mention is just making sure you're thinking out of the box. I think we highlighted it a little bit, but maybe not quite as much as we might have in terms of counting hours. And those district board members, I think Wendy kind of laid a lot of that out as to what you could count and what you can't count. And farmers are a great talent pool for volunteers with all the things that they do for us that they're not getting paid to do, and just even offering their farm as a venue for an event. There's a lot involved with that, and I think that we just need to make sure we're not leaving hours off the table or on the table that we could have gotten credit for. We did have quite a drop in the number of volunteers and hours in the past year, and that's understandable. That's just the environment we're working in. But we normally rank within the top 10 for states in terms of our volunteers and the hours they contribute. So I think that's something we can all be proud of and aspire to get back to.
Barbara, do you want to talk about, do you have the numbers from 2019, like how many hours Virginia recorded for Earth Team volunteers and where we placed nationally?
I have them, not right at hand, but I can get them.
Okay. And while Barbara's looking up that, something to note, in the past, if district staff have had, if they're having an event where they need volunteers, I know they've been able to reach out to their area coordinator, and then the area coordinator reach out to Barbara to put something on the website, so that if there are any people finding that website on their own and want a volunteer option, there's some examples. I think Hanover Carolines used it to help if they need volunteers for MUI. Culpeper's used it if they need help for their MUI. And so there's resources out there to help if you do need volunteers for your event. And Kathleen, I really liked how you talked about using Sign Up Genius. So it's a tool to use, so you're making it easier for you instead of harder, especially when you're tracking hours and how the volunteers can self sign up to their schedule. A lot of really good information shared today.
And another thing, with us in Virginia Beach, the city of Virginia Beach, they have a volunteer council. And over the years, not recently, but we have tapped into that volunteer pool. So the Chesapeake Master Gardeners, they have their own educational component to their Master Gardener program. And I'm going to do some training with my environmental education programs. And hopefully we're going to get them trained and they will be able to go out with the Enviroscape. We're working on purchasing some Enviroscapes, and they'll be able to help me in the classroom as well. Because like I said, it's just me trying to go into all of these middle and high schools, and it's just something that I turn away schools all the time. So we're working with them to help us in the classroom. And they do all of the background information, doing the background checks and everything before they go into the school. So that's a partnership I'm looking forward to with the Master Gardeners.
Okay, I have my numbers now. I'll share those with you. In 2019, we had 1,892 volunteers who contributed over 16,000 hours. And in 2020, it dropped down to 654 volunteers with 5,608 hours. So quite a difference a year makes in terms of being able to use volunteers. And we did try as much as possible to encourage our staff to bring the volunteers out in the field when the offices are closed to the public. But we're all kind of working more virtually these days, so that kind of translated into lower hours. But I know, for example, in Donna's area, they do a whole lot of tree plantings where you can have groups that will amass a pretty sizable amount of hours for one event. And I think those have dropped down to nothing, haven't they, Donna?
Pretty much, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, those numbers are really impressive. And again,
This is Wendy. I'd like.
Go ahead, Wendy.
I just wanted to reiterate about the volunteers that need hours for like college or high school or for an internship. One of the things that with this new database, we're supposed to be able to go in and pull a report of all the hours that a volunteer has worked for us. And it would be just a report of the individual volunteer, even if they worked in the group. So that's one of the advantages to signing your volunteer up with the Earth Team and allowing us to put them into the database, and we can pull a report that we can just print up and send to you for your volunteer to use for whatever reason they need to report all their volunteer hours.
Excellent. great point, Wendy. We've gone through a lot of growing pains to get a new volunteer tracking system, and we're still kind of working through that, but it has now been deployed and has the options to run a number of customized reports that we are more than willing to share.
Well, thank you, everyone. I don't see any other questions in the chat box. But being that everything is still virtual, this is still an opportunity to maybe sit down and think about when we do go back in person safely, what are some programs that could utilize volunteers? And you can refer back to this presentation and the presentations that we'll send you, and reach out to your area coordinator to talk about ideas. And I just felt like this was a really cool opportunity for you all to hear more about what Earth Team is, so that, again, when things start reopening and when you want to really go full charge with your programs, you can look back to this and see like how Earth Teams can be a part of your programming to really strengthen not only your soil monitor district, but strengthen the relationship with NRCS and really work to the mission of looking at natural resources in Virginia and then throughout the United States. So thank you all for joining this morning. Thank you again to Barbara Bowen. Thank you to Donna Heidel, Brittany Owens, Anika Collins, Wendy Mears, to Rachel Winter from Headwaters Soil and Water District, and to Kathleen Sullivan from the Virginia Dare Soil and Water District. I feel like this has been really informative, and I really hope that for those of you attending, you have a better understanding of what Earth Team Volunteer is and who to reach out to for more information with your area coordinator. So if no one has any other questions, I hope you guys have a really good rest of your day. Thank you to all the volunteers that we do have to really support what we do, and enjoy Earth Week. So you guys keep well and take care.
Okay.